want proof. And then we'll download the attendees list in a bit. And thanks everybody for coming. I'm Dan McPherson. I work with Snapped head office. This is Paul Dutton. He's the one that started Snapped. We got a lot of our local Snap reps like Victoria on the line and tons of familiar faces coming in. So I'll throw it over to you, Paul, if you like.
Thanks,
to
Dan.
get started.
Yeah, I'll get started, and I want to welcome everyone to today's presentation. Some of you maybe have heard the rumors or the whispers, and we really value everyone that's attending today because you've been part of the fabric of our communities for many years, whether it's Dufferin and Orangeville or Newmarket, or I know there's people here from Halifax and Dartmouth. So, thank you for attending today, and it's an honor to tell you what's going on with us. So as you're aware of, or maybe you don't know the total history behind Snap, but I started Snap 17 years ago, and it was pretty simple, the concept. Even the name was, built upon the concept of a snapshot. And we really have evolved. So historically, we had a newspaper and we took pictures of people at parties. We published that. And for lack of a better way of describing it, we sold ads against that. That was our primary revenue source. And we did that for a great many number of years. But coming from our backgrounds have always been marketing, and my background is certainly advertising and marketing, not publishing per se, or not even, direct media per se. And we always built it on the premise of building engagement within our communities, supporting our businesses and citizens and governments, and making sure that we were doing things effectively. And it has evolved over the years, and it's evolved to the point that about a year ago, just literally pre-COVID, we started building upon doing a brand change. And we would have done it last May or so, we were targeting. And if not for COVID, we probably would have done it then. But the world's certainly evolving into being accelerated with, McKinsey report comes out and says, hey, the world's evolving, and digital platforms are super accelerated. Even today's presentation, I don't even know how many sort of GoTo or Zoom or team type meetings I did pre-COVID, but it was probably less than 10. And I think I've done 10 today. And so just engaging with people in a digital sense, people using apps to do things, whether it's even simple things like, skip the dishes and some of those kind of accelerations we're familiar with. So all these e-services are catching up, and they've been accelerated because of COVID, and even our brand change and what we do as a company has been accelerated. So we're really moving into a digital space. Just so you know, we are changing the name to Neighbur, and it really is because we feel that we're really good at connecting people in the truly neighbor sense of things. And I'll get into those various aspects of what we do in a second. But Neighbur, even the newspaper, or Snap the newspaper, is evolving to become Neighbur the magazine. That's a lot of what we want to talk about today, and we certainly have other webinars to talk about some of the unique things we're doing as far as a brand and connecting people within a neighborhood. But it really is a matter, same principle, connecting people in a positive sense and stimulating that growth within our community. So you're seeing that and you're hearing it, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce saying it or the government saying support local, engage locally. That really is being accelerated too. And that's, the foundation, if you will, of the Neighbur platform. So we could go on to the next page. So giving you a sense of what we're doing, and we've been building upon for the last 2 years pretty much, is the backbone of what we're doing is our app. And the app is going to be central to what we do. And things through our app, certainly finding local events. Historically, and even pre-COVID, most of our communities, we would have about 250 to 300 events that would come into our system. And we anticipate post-COVID and with the Neighbur app that we'll be looking well over 1,000 events per month. And down to events that might even be described as experiences or get-togethers more so than even events. It could be Dan and I getting together tomorrow, which is what we're going to do, and we're going to watch England beat Scotland in soccer at 3 o'clock. That would be an event per se for Dan and I, but not really an event for the community. And so we're talking about experiences like that. And if anyone wants to come and join and share England with us, you're welcome to join. We can take 2 more people. But those are the kind of levels we think we can go to around engaging people locally that we might not otherwise be connected to. And I'm going to give you an example in a bit about that. Also, just moments, so that might even qualify as a moment. Here's just a selfie picture of Dan and I enjoying the soccer game that we want to share with the community. And we're going to tag things like the bar that we're at, what we're doing, go England, go, that kind of thing. So that just could be a moment, and that could be images that can be created and uploaded from our app. Partner experiences, which I think I'll come back to as well, but within the app, we can now build events that are more robust than just an event. I'll give you a quick example. Last year, in part of our testing phase, we did something with Canadian pulmonary fibrosis. So we supported the campaign that was happening, and because it was within the app as well, we could play a video, for example, from the CEO of the organization talking about what was going on. People could make a donation through the app. And because it was pulmonary fibrosis, even within the app, they could blow bubbles within the app, which is part of, got a couple of people coming in. I just let them in. Drew McLaren, who's part of our printer, just joined us. He actually is our printer, so welcome, Drew, there. But part of the partner experience is you could watch a video, as I said, you could make a donation or even blow bubbles. So we have that kind of technical capabilities. And with pulmonary fibrosis, it's, literally people don't have the ability to blow bubbles. So you're drawing an awareness to that kind of thing. And then obviously some of you are aware, and we've been doing augmented reality for about 1.5 years, built into the Snapped Hub app, but that was all sort of modeling. We're using AR, or augmented reality, to its ultimate sense going forward. So our publications will be able to be consumed based on one's ability to read. So I could flip through and see pictures and see things, and we're going to get into some sub pages, what they kind of look like. But the more logical view of how Neighbor is going to work is literally you're going to have your phone in your hand while you do it. And from that, there's a sample ad there, for example, for Tim Hortons, where one would be able to hold their phone over that ad, be able to make a donation to Tim Hortons camp, see more about it, perhaps watch a video, maybe sign their kids up for it. Whatever's happening there basically meant that people can engage on a whole other level than just a 2-dimensional ad that's sitting in the magazine. So that's just giving you a skim version of where we're going. We'd probably go on to the next page here, Glenn. In the sense of, just like historically, we would publish reams and reams of events and photos. So here's pictures from the Magna Hoedown. There might be 20 photos on that particular page, and people in their cowboy gear and could look at it. And we would tell people you could go to our website and see more photos. But now, because of how society thinks and what we want to do, it typically is going to be one photo. I could hold my phone up. It might activate a video. So I'm Paul here from Magna. I want to shout out to everyone. We had a great hoedown this year. We raised $600,000. If you want to see more photos, click on the link below. If you want to make a donation to any one of our charities, click and do that. If you want to contribute content or even upload photos, click and do that. It's meant to be this real immersive content and engaging scenario with all things events. We'd be able to direct people to websites to make donations. Maybe the Magna in that case wouldn't need volunteers, but maybe the charities need volunteers. Maybe I just want to register for something. So maybe it's a town event and they want to say, hey, we're taking registrations for swimming or something right now. And you'd be able to do it right from the app. So it's meant to be engaging content that comes to life. Same thing, we're having ticketing pages within the publication to say these are big events that are happening. I used Magna, but now it's pre-Magna Hoedown, where I could hover over, I could see the bands that are going to play right from the app. I can get tickets. We're already programming now to be integrated with Google at Home, Siri, for example, so I could come into my house and I could go, hey, Google, what's happening this weekend? My phone just launched. So I might get an answer right now, but hey, Google, what's happening this month? Details. Oh, here we go. I'll just turn this off. So what's happening, and Google would be able to tell me, hey, the Magna Hoedown's next week and we think you'd like it, Paul. And I'll be able to just simply go hands-free, get me 2 tickets. All of that ticketing is built into the app. And so whether you're managing tickets or creating events with ticketing, buying tickets, sharing tickets, scanning tickets, all those kind of ticketing functions are built in there. Needless to say, with our ticketing platform, we're also managing a database around that ticketing. We're also building a page around volunteers. I know there's a lot of not-for-profits. I think there's even some politicians and political candidates. I know there's elections coming up. They might be looking for volunteers as well, or they want to give a shout out to volunteers. This page is meant to give a shout out fundamentally to the community around people that have added value to our organizations that use volunteers, and to stimulate people to become volunteers. So if I was to look at, I'm going to do a little sidebar here and give you a quick story that came out of Orangeville. There is a kid there that's selling bath bombs every month or every couple of months. Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong. He sells these bath bombs that he makes and he donates the profits to a charity. I know because I was on a call with the hospital foundation where this month I think he's raised $1,400 or $1,500 for the hospital foundation, and last month he raised $3,000 for the SPCA. We were gonna, his name's Chase. We're gonna make Chase a star, and we're gonna shine a light on him every month, and we're really gonna have something called What's Chase? Who's Chase raising money for this month? And I'll be able to go over, we could have Chase going, hey, it's Chase here. This month I'm raising money for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, whatever his charity of the month is. And it really is to emote people to engage. But let's take the other spots on that page. It could be, hey, it's Paul here. I just want to shout out, I'm from Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I've got Dan, who the top guy kind of looks like. So, although he's a little more handsome than Dan. Anyway, see, that's why Dan's recording this. So anyway, we've got Dan here who's been a big brother for 10 years in our community. He's done a lot. He shows up at our walkathons and when we do our big barbecues, and he's always there handing it out. And I just want to give props to Dan, or it could be that's Dan from the Honda dealership, and his dealership's always contributed to our organization, making sure we have financial viability in our organization. I want to shout him out for that. It's meant for a page to activate the community to volunteer. But once again, because we're using augmented reality, we can add buttons like make a donation to Big Brothers or sign up right from there to become a volunteer. Or, you know, follow us on social media. So it's really meant to be a page to engage with people. Similar to that, we're doing a spotlight on local organizations. I should mention all the stuff I've mentioned so far is free. We're not asking people for money to be that. Our partnership comes, or our revenue comes from things like ticketing. I don't need to make money from Big Brothers to try and help them find volunteers. What we want to do is build a robust community that people are using Neighbor and the publication and the app to engage more, to, you know, generate more, whatever it is we're looking for in that example, volunteers. Same thing with local organizations. What we're trying to do is accentuate the what currently is out there on people thinking about, I need to connect locally, and sometimes by simply putting a face to things or a voice to things is all it takes. We all live in our communities, and We kind of know probably lots of things in our communities, but we might not know what's behind the curtain. I'm going to use an example that's happened in Newmarket and Aurora that was kind of stimulated by COVID and how that can kind of work. So there's a guy in town, his name's Mike Rathke. He owns a men's clothing store, higher end kind of Italian, nice fashions. And when COVID hit, his store basically closed. And I would say out of the last 500 days, he's been open maximum 100. And yet that's a guy that's been a part of our fabric of our community for 15, 20 years, has always supported the hospital foundation on their walks. He does a fashion show for the hospital. I'm involved with the Easter Seals. He's done Dancing with the Stars. So certainly ingratiated into the community. When COVID hit, his income went to zero. And we morphed our ticketing system into collecting, what's the word I'm hanging on this? Gift certificates. We changed it. We raised $10,000 for Mike the first day in gift certificates. And all the communication was, we used video to say, hey, it's Mike here. I've been supporting the community for 15 years. I need your support now. It wasn't exactly a beg like that, but it was basically creating empathy by using video and using augmented reality and using social media to say, hey, let's not forget about Mike now. And you're going to be able to spend the money and get your tie when they open up. So you're just buying it now. It's the same kind of logic where we want to create empathy with whatever that store owner is. It might be Dan's Cheese Shop or Victoria's clothing store, or it could be somebody else's, I don't want to say restaurant because I'm going to show you something in a second, but another business, or Paul the lawyer. And we want to create empathy and connection. We certainly use video, and we want to use AR activation off this. So it's kind of like spotlight on, or a peek behind the business, or whatever you want to call it. And obviously all those businesses are the pulse of our, business community, if you will. And so they might be activating things like ticketing. They might be doing podcasts. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. It might be playing a gateway to their podcast that they're doing. I should mention, and I will mention a bit later too, that the whole time we're grabbing data on what people are doing. I'm not saying we're grabbing data in a malicious way. We're not selling that data. The app is grabbing data and it's starting to understand what people are engaging with. So if I go back, maybe I've engaged with the Easter Seals volunteer page. Now I'm looking into Victoria's women's clothing page. Maybe I'm looking for Mother's Day things. And I'm starting to develop a bit of a profile. Maybe I'm buying tickets to Mike Rathke's fashion show for the hospital. And the app starts to learn about me, and the AI and machine learning starts to be able to suggest things for me in the future. But anyway, we're now on to a what's cooking page, which is the same kind of logic. Let's shine a light on all the bars, restaurants, and people, caterers and things in town. Let's even get into things like, hey, here's a recipe that this restaurant's going to give you. You know that famous penne that they're known for and people love? The chef is going to tell you how to make it, and you're going to be able to click and download that recipe. Some people would argue, why would you give that secret sauce away? And I would argue, by doing so, you're letting people into your world being the chef. Nobody's ever going to make it as well as the chef, even if you made it exactly the same, because you don't have the ambiance. You're sitting in front of watching the TV, watching the Leafs lose, versus being at that person's restaurant, having a nice glass of wine and having that restaurant. So at the end of the day, that's actually going to work in the favor of the restaurateur or the chef, because you're elevating the connectivity to it, and he's being demonstrative of that. But from that page, I'd be able to make a reservation. I would challenge anyone. If I had two images and one was giving me a recipe and the other was just, hey, click here to make a reservation, and they both had activation buttons to make a reservation, the one that gave away the recipe would get more reservations. That's a bit of the logic, but there could be gift certificates, contests, once again, podcasts, events, anything that could come off that page will come off that page. We're very centric at Snap to events, and certainly bars and restaurants and venues. That's kind of what this page is all about. And it's important for us to shine a light on what's going on. We anticipate beyond the magazine, though, that people will be using our app for a multitude of purposes. And I'm going to use an example in a second of how we're using it in the test stuff we're doing in Newmarket. But we're dealing with communities right now, like the town of Newmarket, for example. And we're suggesting things and working through models, things like clingies, which are like fridge magnets, where I could sit there in the morning and I could go, here's my fridge, what's happening? That information could be updated daily or up to the minute updated if need be. And it could be giving me now, it could be giving me COVID information, but tomorrow it could give me information on what's happening with garbage pickup next week because Monday's a holiday, or what's happening with Canada Day because Monday is a holiday. And so I can have up-to-date information at cost of pennies, because it really is just changing something on our end, a little change. And that content, because you're seeing this content created by people now, we call it YouTube, where it's like, hi, I'm Paul, I'm the mayor, and Canada Day's at Fairy Lake this week. So that kind of content can be created in an instant and can be managed through a back end and delivered to the consumers, versus a community that might have to send out a newsletter to 30,000 households versus a little change that could happen this way. So I might be sitting there grabbing that. I might be scrolling through some pictures of, oh, there's Paul and Dan at the soccer game in that moment, sense, liking, sharing, tagging, putting it into other social channels. I might be buying tickets to something, click, something that I've done. Midday, maybe I'm going out. I'm going to go right to it. I have a dog. You guys have heard her bark already. So I might be taking my dog out for a walk. In Newmarket and Aurora, we've already tested this. We have Corplast signs on the trails and in the dog parks that say, join this dog circle. So people are going to the sign and activating through AR to join a dog circle. It was meant to be a virtual get together. And in about 2.5 weeks, we had 200 people sign up. So it's a women's dog circle. So 200 women, they've already had like 3 or 4 get togethers where they have things like dog trainers and people that talk about dog food. But that group was connected because they all own dogs. Now we're mapping out with them a real live dog show, for lack of a better way of describing it, where all those same vendors and stuff are getting together at a microbrewery in their parking lot in August, and they're going to have cocktails and see dog things. The OPP dog people are going to be there, so it's going to be a full dog show. That gives you a sense, and that came from AR activation on dog trails, saying that's kind of an example of a better example than Dan and I just getting together for watching the soccer game. This is a whole group of people that never existed before that were using AR to say, maybe you guys would like each other. You all have dogs. And working with that same group, we're getting into things like Alzheimer's circles and people with diabetes circles and ways for people to connect that otherwise you didn't really have the methodology to do. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm trying to give you a sense of what's going on there, using AR to engage with people. And then, of course, day in the life of could look like I've gotten tickets in the afternoon, or I historically got tickets. Maybe I'm going to that event. I'm showing my tickets. Maybe I'm watching augmented reality fireworks. I don't know if you guys know we do that, but we're doing it again this year in about 100 communities. So you can watch the fireworks socially distanced through your phone. It could be additional experiences that you get. So I know we're doing a bunch of music programming, but I maybe could watch the encore performance through the app, or maybe it's just, hey, community, it's Jim Cuddy here. I'm going to play you a Blue Rodeo tune through the app, something that you might not normally have, or maybe it's a local band that can do it. But we've certainly around it all are the insights. So we want all our partners to be able to check out the insights, so the data and the analytics behind everything, to have up to the moment who's engaging with it. Just kind of I riffed off the numbers around um, uh, the dog circles thing. We did run an event in Snapped as well. Or sorry, ran an ad and Snapped around the dog circles. And I think the total numbers to date are roughly 300 activations, maybe 50 or something, or 70 from the ad, and 250 from the walk and like the signs. So using one similar kind of example, just to give it to you on a different thing, in Newmarket, they have turtle nesting area. Same thing, the town has put core plus signs into place that say, turtle nesting area, and it's pretty graphically pretty average. And we went back to them and said, we should AR activate these, because literally from that sign, you could make a donation to the Ontario Turtle Rescue Association, or you could actually play a video or link to a website that tells you more about turtles. And actually, all the people that do that, we could nudge them through the app saying, hey, the turtles are hatching, come back and watch them get into the river. So those are the kind of things we're working on right now. But it's really meant, in its overall sense, events are free to submit. We still want you to submit everything. And really, in the moment sent, we want you to contribute moments like Dan and I at the soccer game, or people on the dog trail doing things. So those kind of moments, submit events and moments like always. We're going to give you that hyper local kind of connectivity to it. And now, if you're somebody here from the library, that would include every Tuesday's mom and tot reading. We want it in the system. We'll know all the moms with tots, and we'll be able to get them to your reading stuff. Obviously, community interactions like purchasing tickets, access to exclusive content, access to partner experiences. I didn't really talk too much about that. I don't know, Dan, if you want to dive into that a little bit deeper, but I'm going to try and show you something that's in the Snap Hub right now. So it's happening in Aurelia. So when I click on events, it's kind of difficult to see. These are events. I know it's very bright there. These are kind of in-app events, not just regular events. I can click on one. There's an Aurelia Perch Festival, and it gives me an in-app sort of experience that's beyond just a regular event you might see. So for example, from this one, I could see a festival overview. It's going to be a video that tells me about their great fishing derby. I can enter the derby, so I can sign up. I can virtual bubbles. So they have some bubbles like water bubbles I can play with my kids. And there's a link here for me to go and look at the winners. They have a daily contest running and I could see all the winners. So it's like a virtual event. And these are partner experiences that we can take well beyond or integrate with events, if you will. You're certainly going to be able to upload photos and videos. You're going to explore other communities. So if you're traveling, the app will travel with you. If I'm in Windsor, I'm going to see things that are happening around Windsor. And I'm going to be able to contribute it to the vibrancy and health of our community. But the partner services, we have core app experiences we can do. We have comprehensive event programs, obviously event ticketing that we've been doing for a number of years now, print-based and geofence-based augmented reality. So I was on a call with the city of Windsor. That's why I'm using them as an example. When was that? Yesterday afternoon. And they're doing the Can-Am police and fire games. So we can geofence the entire town. And the town has 42 events happening, from archery to hockey to swimming events, kind of like a mini Olympics. And we can geofence the entire town. So within the app, there's a mapping system that people could go click. Over here is the archery, and over here is swimming. And we can layer in sponsors. So the archery is brought to you by McDonald's, and swimming is brought to you by Tim Hortons, or whatever the case may be. So within the app, we have it built into their app, which means they don't have to build an app. We have the app. They're also doing geo-fenced area in downtown Windsor, where they're 3-day kind of like bar thing, for lack of a better way of describing it. The whole area will be able to walk around with a drink and jump from bar to bar, restaurant to restaurant, with all these activities happening in there. And so we can even manage all that for them through the app. So that's kind of like geofence. We're talking about print-based AR, but there's actually geofence, where we could say within this building or within this block or within the street that there's an activity that happens there. We've talked about the engagements and insights, and there's in-app ads and sponsorship. So those are things that are coming, but the concept behind it, if I'm looking at a group of photos, I can actually, but let's say it was some Magna Hoedowns, which is country and western thing, there might make sense within the app for, if I'm looking at photos, to suggest some country band that's going to be playing at a bar. My propensity to get tickets for that is high because I was checking out the Hoedown tickets, or photos, I should say. So anyway, in its totality, the platform is well beyond just a magazine. It's an app, it's augmented reality, it's data and insights, it's print and social. So even on the social media side of things, once again, using Windsor, just because all this data is fresh in my head, like Snap Windsor has about 25,000 Facebook fans, and it has about 15,000 Instagram followers. Now, a lot of them would be the same people, but let's say in totality, it's 35,000 people. So we use our social media to promote things, right? So taking advantage of great communication, things you might post, you should tag, in that case, Neighbor Windsor, but say Snap Windsor, and building an audience that way. So leveraging those platforms. And when you do things like podcasts, which I'll get to in a second, there's content that you can create for those, out of those platforms. So always be kind of cognizant of that. Ticketing, content engagement, and podcasts. I'm just going to hang on that for a little bit. We've now started producing podcasts, and we ironically launched our podcast studio at our head office. We really launched roughly February 1st last year, and then a month later, it's like, okay, we're not doing podcasts for a while. But we do have the ability to do remote podcasts now. We are doing podcasts, but we can do a professionally produced podcast, manage the entire process. We do, we have engineers on staff. We can do the full creative. There's more to doing a podcast than just getting a mic and saying stuff. Well, one could do it that way. You're going to probably get that net result. It's kind of like I could make an ad, but I'm better if I have a designer make the ad. It's going to look more professional. So it's the same kind of logic. And we are doing a webinar next week on podcasts. I did one today, but there's ways of it being monetized, and it's ways for that content to be sliced and diced. So to let you behind my curtain, I'm involved with a bunch of podcasts, but we specifically do podcasts for Christine Elliott, the Minister of Health. We also do one for Tony Van Bynen, the Liberal, our Liberal MP. And so we do these podcasts because they're great vehicles for them to communicate. And we can slice and dice them into micro bits of content for their social media. So the strategy for Christine is, and it's not a Ministry of Health, she is the MPP for Newmarket and Aurora. So it really is around Newmarket and Aurora, her podcast. But we go into the podcast having guests, and I'll give you an example of one of the things we did. So the Newmarket Chamber did its awards night, and she wanted to profile some of the awards winners. So we had them as guests, but it really was also talking about the province's $20,000 or $40,000 gift or grant that you could get as a small business person. So the story was, hey, Rob, congrats on winning the small business award. And there was the interaction there. But then she also weaved in like the provincial grant. Total strategy. The podcast in its totality was great. But then we ended up with that 2 minute segment or a minute and a half segment that her executive director, Dawn, used in a social media post and had lots of engagement. So multi-purposing content is really important. And we use podcasts well beyond just being talking heads. We do video casting as well, knowing that we're going to use it on social media. I don't want to get too much into podcasts, but it's something that we do. And we're certainly doing Neighbor podcasts as well. So in Newmarket and Aurora, we have done conversations in Newmarket with Neighbor, which we launched about a year ago. And we've been doing them right through. And the reason they weren't with Snapped is we knew Snapped was going away. So we didn't want to develop branded content that would become obsolete. So a lot of people are like, why is it called Neighbor or whatever? So that's why, right? Because we knew Neighbor was coming. Certainly we have our own ad agency, so we have our own design division. So if Drew's on the call right now, so we have a great print relationship with McLaren Press out of Bracebridge, phone number to follow. I'm just plugging him right now. But Drew historically has printed most of our snaps. I mean, we have snaps in BC and stuff, but has printed all our snaps, and he will be printing our neighbors, and we're working through all some logistics on that. But if there's any needs that you might have, we always say that, we have great relationships with people like Drew, and it's down to things like business cards or anything like that you might need. We spend a lot of money on printing, and Drew likes to accommodate us, we'll put it that way. And by extension, all of our partners. And on the partnership level, we're really good at people like Victoria. I see Melissa's on the call too, Melissa out of Barrie. We're really good at being, I'll use Melissa as an example. So she's doing a lot of work with doing an AR experience for the Barrie BIA. It's been running, cool programs have been running in the fall and at Christmas time, using augmented reality, having tent cards and tables, people interacting, winning prizes. She also has a client, Mitsubishi, who wanted to develop a bigger profile, leverage social media, leverage Snap for its voice, and she ended up putting them together, and they wouldn't otherwise be together. And I'm going to give you a plug right now, Melissa. If someone wants to win a 2-year lease on a Mitsubishi, you can go to Snap Barrie's Instagram page and figure out how to do that. You can enter a contest and win something there. But she ended up bringing them together to the point where the Mitsubishis are sitting in downtown Barrie. And so she brings partnerships together. I like to think that as a corporation, we're really good at doing that, recognizing, going back to even that dog circle party, the venue where it is one of our partners. We're like, hey, you should do a real event. You should do it over here. So we're really good at trying to connect people or listening to people and seeing how they can all fit. So now I'll take my first breath. But in its totality, that's kind of what Neighbor's all about. It's a platform and a strategy around media that's well beyond just the print. It includes things like podcasts, certainly our app, videos, etc. Is there anything, Dano, you wanted to add? Besides, you'd be happy to pay for tomorrow's drinks?
Yes, of course, always. No, that was good. Thanks. I mean, we're throwing a lot at you guys. But obviously you have some great representatives in your area, Melissa and Mike and Victoria and Jeff. And so we're going to send out this deck to everybody and make sure that you have a chance to kind of go through it and look at some of the interesting things that have been mentioned that apply to your strategy. Or it might even be some help that you need to develop the strategy onto its own. Maybe you don't have a strategy. Maybe you just have some needs. So don't hesitate to reach out to those local reps. They're going to be reaching out to you. Essentially, for these inaugural neighbors, you guys are on these calls because we want you in them. So think of the initiatives you got over the next 3 to 6 months, gather some photos, have some conversations with the local Snapped/Neighbor owner. We want your faces in there. We want your links in there. Keep in mind now, it's not just about photos, it's about videos, short little selfie videos. You might already have some videos, and buttons, links to URLs, calls to action that you guys want. So let that stuff gestate for a little bit, and then we'll obviously be chatting to you, but we want to make sure that everybody that appears on these calls is a part of that initial tidal wave of activity and promotion that we give, letting the community know that this is a tool out there for them as well. So
yeah, and we are doing a lot of stuff like this. Will be a tidal wave hitting the towns. We have a big social media campaign. We're going to blanket the community with new neighbors. There is a neighbor wave coming to town, so to speak. I think I would like to send, like, sometimes I feel when I do these things that it's like a giant pitch. I don't mean this to be a pitch at all. This is what Neighbor's about. We have lots of partners that are restaurants, for example. Or I use Mike Rathke, go back to the men's clothing friend of ours. Like, this isn't about selling him an ad right now. If he was in a position of, I've only been open 4 days, Paul, I don't have any money. We want him to be in the publication. He can simply say, I'm in, but I can't pay now. That's fine, because we'll catch up with that, right? Now, if there's realtors on it, yeah, realtors can pay because they're making lots of money now. But we have friends next door that own restaurants and things like, yeah, we've got to make sure we get there. And we know over time they're going to have ticketed events and we'll get caught up on all that. One thing I should mention, though, that everything we do now, as it relates to print, we want to utilize augmented reality. So we actually don't want an ad that doesn't have AR. The AR is now built into our pricing, which is cheaper than what it used to be. So we just want to ensure that we at minimum go, hey, it's Paul here. Hey, neighbor, it's Paul here. Here's my business and this is what I do. And click on the link below and follow me on Facebook or whatever that call to action may be. So we want to make sure that you take advantage of what we're doing. You guys have all been invited because you are actively partnering with us on things and part of the fabric of our community, or your politicians or people that we've been connected to all along. So we're now saying, let's giddy up because there's a lot more coming. And so just probably reiterating what Dan kind of said there anyway.
No, that's terrific.
Does anybody else want to ask anything or comment or anybody? We're trying to be respectful of time. We've been 45 minutes, which is, for me, that's pretty good, eh, Dan?
Yeah, that's not bad. But yeah, to that, everybody, we know life over COVID has been extraordinarily hectic. So taking an hour out of your day to hear this, hopefully, as Paul said, you're not taking it as a pitch, but you're taking it as a massive amount of tools that you're going to be able to use without the initial capital investment of an app yourself, or some of these programs or things like augmented reality that you wouldn't be able to tap into. So we really appreciate you coming. Stay tuned. We'll follow up with an email that has this deck, and by all means, get the wheels going and connect with your local contact, and we'll just start the dialogue. So again,
we'll let you know of some of the other webinars we're doing on like specific subjects like podcasting and that kind of thing as well.
Awesome. All right, everybody, have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy your Friday. Well, your Thursday and your Friday. Thanks for attending.
Friday's tomorrow, you and I. Dan,
I know. Right? I just meant, the rest of this day and tomorrow.
Thanks, then, everybody.
Okay, take care, all.
Yeah, see ya. Bye.